Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Miami Heat were dumbfounded with Caleb Martin contract negotiations. The Miami Heat lost a major piece of their core this summer after veteran swingman Caleb Martin agreed to join the Philadelphia 76ers. According to NBA insider Barry Jackson, the Heat tried to negotiate with Martin but were left dumbfounded by the decisions made by him and his camp. Miami could not make a similar offer after free agency started because it would have involved Martin opting in with much bigger salaries in subsequent years, wrote Jackson. So Martin turned down 5 years, $65 million from Heat and then a week later settled for what ESPN said is 4 years topping $32 million from the 76ers. Martin's rep thought the Heat's offer wasn't good enough, which dumbfounded Heat. This Heat/Martin negotiation last weekend was quite, shall we say, intense, per two sources. Martin's camp thought Heat was trying to force him to take what Martin's rep thought was below market deal and made that clear. Heat thought this was a very good offer, it was, and made that very clear. Caleb Martin was among the more minor free agents this summer, but his shooting and defense on the wing are highly valuable skills in the NBA, and they helped the Heat win a lot of games over the past 3 years. Martin, 28, emerged as a premier frontcourt player for the Miami Heat. He initially broke out during the 2023 finals run and went on to average 10.0 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 2.2 assists per game on 43.1% shooting last season. With his deal set to expire this summer, the Heat had been negotiating a new contract with Martin and reportedly made an offer of roughly $13 million per year for the next 5 years. Martin would have had to opt into his $7.1 million player option next season to sign the extension, but it was a step that he was unwilling to take. Instead, Martin had his agents play hardball with the Heat, and when he opted out of his deal it essentially took Miami's $65 million offer off the table. With nowhere else to turn, Martin had to accept a new deal with the 76ers for $32 million over 4 years, which is just around $8 million per year. Clearly, Martin made a mistake with his contract decision, and it's something he'll have to live with for the next 4 years. As for the Heat, while Martin was no star, he was a huge piece of their offense and gave them some much-needed firepower on the perimeter. With him gone and Jimmy Butler another year older, it's fair to say the Heat will take a step back in the East standings next season. According to reports, the Heat front office barely knows how to handle the new CBA, and they have yet to make a trade or signing that will move the needle for them. As their core players get older, including Jimmy and Bam, it will get harder and harder for them to keep up with rising levels of competition. If Pat Riley doesn't pull off a miracle here soon, his Heat could be on the verge of a rebuild and they will have nothing to show for their run with Butler. Haywood Highsmith on running it back with Miami Heat, we think we got more in the tank. The Miami Heat are the epitome of the highs and lows of an NBA franchise. Check out the last 3 seasons, 2022, first in the Eastern Conference, lost in conference finals. 2023, 8th in the East, lost in NBA Finals. 2024, 8th in the East, lost in first round. With the Heat set to field basically the same roster for a 4th straight season, is this finally the year of a breakthrough? Forward Haywood Highsmith thinks so. On Monday, the Heat re-signed him to a 2-year deal. He's been around for the duration of this run. It's been a process, Highsmith said. This is my first time being like a real, true free agent. We just took it day by day with multiple calls, multiple meetings talking about different things. It's been an up and down roller coaster. I think the contract I got now for the Heat, I'm satisfied with it. We think we got more in the tank, for sure. The Heat's only addition in free agency so far is guard Alec Burks, who was acquired from the New York Knicks. They also chose Kel'el Ware and Pelle Larsson in the draft, but the core is mostly the same. Highsmith returns after having the best season of his career, averaging 6.1 points in 20.7 minutes. I talked to other teams, obviously, Highsmith said of the free agency process. A few made some offers. Some didn't have no offers. They were just interested. It could have went kind of either way, but I'm glad to be back with the Miami Heat. There was a time the Miami Heat and Milwaukee Bucks were thrilled about being grouped together. After a few days of free agency, they are linked for something that is far from flattering. ESPN's Zach Lowe said the Bucks and the Heat are having the worst offseasons in the NBA so far this summer. Miami, Milwaukee, wake up, the offseason is here, Lowe said. On an appearance on Get Up, the rest of the East is maybe, kind of, trying to pass you by at the top. They really haven't done much. They don't have many tools, but it's kind of sad to watch them just stand in place. The Heat and Bucks had little movement this week, while the Philadelphia 76ers and Orlando Magic made major moves. The Magic struck first by adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope before the Sixers signed Paul George. The lack of moves by contenders of the past made Lowe say the rest of the Eastern Conference has caught up. The Bucks and Heat are the only teams in the East to play in the NBA Finals other than the Boston Celtics since 2020. I think this is a good team, Lowe said of the Heat on his podcast. I think the gap has widened between them and the top of the East. Obviously, Alec Burks is not going to close the gap. He's a helpful guy to have around. It feels like the Heat are kind of in a holding pattern, trying to figure out what the next pivot is. Could Miami Heat make another play for Damian Lillard if things go sour in Milwaukee? Barring a Butler-Douglas-type upset, the Miami Heat are likely to run it back with mostly the same roster for a second straight season. The Heat's biggest offseason victories were re-signing Kevin Love, Haywood Highsmith, and Thomas Bryant while losing Caleb Martin. These moves are not exactly putting fear into the hearts of the Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks, Cleveland Cavaliers, and even the Orlando Magic. The chances to improve without a trade are pretty much gone this summer, but the option could remain open during the season with a little help. ESPN's Zach Lowe recently suggested it would take things turning sour in Milwaukee to reopen the possibility of acquiring Damian Lillard. They could always, if things go badly in Milwaukee, they could always revisit Dame, Lowe said this week on his podcast. Donovan Mitchell just signed a 3-year extension with the Cavs. That's going to be off the table for them for a little bit. That was one of their dream targets, I think. We'll see. Not a great summer for the Heat. The Heat spent last offseason trying to lure Lillard. It dragged on all summer, causing them to miss out on other free agents. In the end, Lillard landed with the Bucks because the Portland Trail Blazers had no interest in the Heat's trade assets. Perhaps things could change with Milwaukee. The Heat always have Tyler Herro, Duncan Robinson, and either Jamie Jaquez or Nikola Jovic. Herro, a Milwaukee native, could entice the Bucks because of the hometown draw. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Damian Lillard? Leave your opinion in the comments.